Good afternoon everyone. Maupay nga kulop haaton nga tanan. Magandang hapon po sa ating lahat. Welcome to Huruhisgutay, an online discussion series on vital environmental issues and concerns in Eastern Visayas. Today, environmental conservation is definitely an urgent priority concern. Problems like the continued depletion of our natural resources, global warming, unabated environmental pollution and degradation are just some of the serious issues and concerns that affect each and every one of us and the future generations. If left unattended, this planet, which we call our home, will sooner or later be unable to provide and sustain our basic human needs. Huruhisgutay, which in English means environmental discussion, is an online project that aims to contribute to the sustained effort of saving the world from irreversible ecological destruction. More specifically, Huruhisgutay is a project that seeks to discuss and analyze urgent environmental issues and concerns in Eastern Visayas. By promoting and strengthening cooperation and collaboration between and among entities, Huruhisgutay seeks to assist in the formulation of appropriate policy initiatives that will further advance the purposes and goals of environmental conservation in Eastern Visayas. This afternoon's episode is entitled Huruhisgutay number 6, Solid Waste Management in Eastern Visayas. Solid waste management is a term that is used to refer to the process of collecting and treating various types of waste materials. More specifically, it is a subject matter that explores and offers solutions to the problems and challenges related to how garbage or trash are disposed efficiently and effectively. Most importantly, solid waste management is a subject matter that deals with how solid waste can be changed and used as a valuable resource. It is for this reason that solid waste management is vital in maintaining and sustaining a healthy and livable community, particularly in Eastern Visayas. By getting rid of the hazardous outcomes of various types of solid wastes, everyone is protected for the negative impact of how solid wastes are disposed of. At this point, allow us to introduce to all of you today the distinguished members of this episode's discussion forum. Our first panel member is a BS Biology in Ecology graduate who currently works as a technical staff of the Solid Waste Management Office of the City of Ormoc. Friends, we are pleased to present to you Mr. J. Scotch Betonio. Our next panel member is a professor and marine biologist of the Division of Natural Sciences and Mathematics of UP Visayas Tacloban College. She took her Master of Science in Marine Biology at the Marine Science Institute of UP Diliman as a DOST scholar. She worked on her PhD in Aquatic Bioscience at the University of Tokyo, Japan as a Monbukagakushu scholar. She recently finished her postdoctoral research at the University of California, USA. She is currently the principal investigator of a group called Warning and Technology to Combat Harmful Algal Blooms, or WATCHHAB Region 8, and the project leader of muscle glycogen of the Muscle Biotechnology Program. She is also a research partner of the Filipino Genome Project of the Natural Science Research Institute of UP Diliman and a member of another group called the Semi-Automated Harmful Algal Bloom Detection Systems, or CHABS, of the UP Marine Science Institute. She is among the core faculty of the Master of Science in Environmental Sciences program of UPV Tacloban College. Friends, we are pleased to introduce to you today Dr. Lenny Yap Diheto. Our lead discussant for this episode is an electrical engineer by profession who currently serves as the Visayas coordinator of the Eco Waste Coalition Plastic Free Pilipinas project. He served as Planning and Training Officer of the Cebu City Disaster Risk Reduction and Management Office, as well as Executive Assistant of the Cebu City Environment and Natural Resources Office. His other work experiences include having served as Executive Assistant to the Office of Cebu City Councilor Nida Cabrera, who at that time served as Chairperson of the Environment Committee. His wide range of experiences in the said office gave him the opportunity to draft and lobby for several environmental conservation measures and ordinances. His other professional involvements include having served as legislative consultant, which provided inputs for the CSO Advisory Council, as well as his participation in the Sectoral Transparency Alliance on Natural Governance in Cebu, which advocates the enactment of a multi-stakeholder council on natural resource governance that is tasked to address the issues of mining and quarrying in the province of Cebu. Ladies and gentlemen, we are honored to have with us today our lead discussant, Engineer Joselito R. Vasquez.
Good afternoon. I am Joselito Vasquez from the Eco Waste Coalition. We started this project last year, Plastic Free Pilipinas project, but we have been involved for a long time on the issue of solid waste management and now plastic pollution. This issue of solid waste management remains to be a major challenge among sectors, local government units. I have been fortunate to work with the Cebu City government for more than 8 years. And then I went back to NGO work in Eco Waste Coalition. What I am sharing to you is also part of our advocacy, and at the same time, the paper I got from the National Economic Development Authority Region 8 regarding the situation. So this is our coalition. It's a group of public interest network pursuing sustainable solutions to waste, climate change, and chemical issues. And I believe we are still a member of the National Solid Waste Management Commission, representing the civil society organization. I will be discussing my report based on the 3 guide questions. However, there will be times wherein my discussion may overlap among the 3 guide questions. So I will later sum up my discussion, especially on policy recommendations. I will start with the state of solid waste management in the country and also in Region 8. This is based on the report from the National Solid Waste Management Commission in 2015, wherein they presented a graph of the waste sources. In this graph, it says that household waste constitute the biggest chunk of the municipal solid waste in the Philippines, with 56.7% of the total solid waste. Next to it are the waste from commercial waste, institutional waste, and lastly, industrial waste. It's important to determine which among the sectors are the biggest generators, because this will impact on our approaches, on our methods in solving the issues and the challenges. On the matter of commercial and other institutions, the local government can always regulate them through the permits, such as the annual business permits renewed by these commercial establishments. However, it's a challenge for LGUs to confront or resolve the issues challenge among residential waste generators, especially that among one factor is these are based in the communities. These are also voters. In 2019, Mother Earth Foundation, the Global Alliance for Incinerator Alternatives, GAIA, conducted a waste and brand audit, or a WABA. It's a tweak of the WACS, Waste Analysis and Characterization Study. This is a method wherein the brand is also identified. According to the report, the waste characterization of household waste in the Philippines consists of compostables, 62%. Majority are compostables. Next is recyclables, followed by residuals, special residuals, and hazardous. The huge percentage of compostables shows that organic waste management is an important strategy in barangay, city, and municipal waste management. However, in Region 8, based on the report from NEDA, and I suppose it also came from the DNR because it bears the logo of the Department of Environment and Natural Resources, the biggest chunk of the waste is residual, comprising 56%. Next is biodegradable at 29%, special waste at 9%, and only a very small percentage of recyclable waste at 6%. The report says in previous years, residual waste do not constitute more than 50% of the total regional waste generation. However, due to the pandemic, there has been an increase in residual waste generation reaching 56% as of December 2020. I will go back again to that WABA study. Among the plastic residual waste identified, majority are sachets. And next is the plastic labo bags, plastic shopping bags, and other types of plastics. We believe that recycling is not a decisive solution to our plastic crisis, especially in dealing with plastic residual waste. It is not enough because most plastic waste are of low value, non-recyclables, and it's beyond the capacity of our barangays and municipalities. What we need to do will be discussed later. It's also important during the WABA process to identify the brands. 54% of the waste collected during the different WABA audits in different places in the country, totaling more than 48,000 pieces of plastic residual waste. 54% of them are branded, 44% are unbranded, while less than 1% is unidentifiable. It's important to know the brand because we can also work with corporations, engage with them in coming up with alternative packaging for their products. This is the typical solid waste management flow from generation, collection to disposal. The graphics or the diagram I utilized from the solid waste collection efficiency assessment of selected local government units along Manila Bay. It's a study conducted by EcoWaste with De La Salle. In the area of waste generation, it says 43% of LGUs in Region 8 are implementing segregation at source. And it says it's one of the segregation at source is one of the least implemented components of solid waste management. Implementation is dependent on awareness, behavior, and willingness of people, according to the document. But it's also important to point out that option is also an important aspect. If consumers allowed are provided with options, we had a recent survey 2 years ago that consumers are willing to shift to sustainable packaging if they are allowed or presented with such type of packaging, rather than persist in using single-use plastics. So generation, it's segregation at source is important. Another reason why it is vital is because if we fail to segregate, then our waste will be contaminated with the hazardous or the special waste generated from households. If majority of the waste, as identified by the National Solid Waste Management Commission, comes from the households or the residential, there is a tendency of contamination of the supposedly non-hazardous municipal solid waste if our special waste, which is hazardous, are not segregated at source. So this is very important. One example is the pre-feasibility study we conducted 2 years ago here in Cebu City, conducted by the Asian Development Bank, and it took samples of waste coming directly from barangay trucks. And after obtaining the samples and having it analyzed in a laboratory, the analysis came out that the waste coming from households already have high levels of lead and chromium, and mercury is also breaching the limit. So it is important that we practice segregation at source, and it's also easier to divert waste away from landfills if our waste generated are segregated at source. On collection, usually after collecting the waste generated from different sources, there are also practices wherein waste segregated at source are also mixed during collection, which discourages the practice of segregation. Ecological solid waste management is defined as segregated collection, transport, and disposal. In the case of Region 8, there is a high collection coverage of 51% in barangay level, and still increasing since 2016. This is a figure in 2020. 90% of barangays have MRFs or materials recovery facilities. However, there is a 100% establishment of central materials recovery facilities per province, and the regional average diversion rate is pegged at 34.16%. It's important that there are materials recovery facilities in the barangays, because this is mandated under RA 9003, and given that under Section 10 of RA 9003, the barangays are mandated to ensure segregation and collect biodegradables and recyclables. It is important that they have materials recovery facilities in their localities wherein they can process this waste and divert them instead of having them dumped directly into disposal sites or landfills. From the report, the barangays still have a relatively low percentage of materials recovery facilities, although the region-wide, all provinces already have a central materials recovery facility. The problem with sometimes with a centralized facility is sometimes the capacity of the facility to be able to process on time the waste deposited in these facilities and segregate them and put away the residuals for final disposal. Majority of materials recovery facilities have a hard time coping up, especially in urban centers, in highly urbanized cities. But I believe that the region will be able to cope up with this setup while at the same time working with increasing the number of materials recovery facilities in the barangays. So that the regional average, the diversion rate would be much higher than the current percentage of 34%. In the level of disposal, the report says there are LGUs undergoing closure of open dams and controlled dam sites at 57 LGUs. There are 26 LGUs also conducting total closure and rehab of dam sites. There are 9 LGUs operating sanitary landfills, 40 LGUs operating residual containment facilities, and 7 LGUs operating eco solid waste management parks, and LGUs without disposal sites at 7. I will go to plastic pollution because sometimes the residuals, really the bulk of residuals comes from single-use plastics and other types of plastics. A recent report from Japan-based International Pellet Watch and Sweden-based International Pollutants Elimination Network says no current management method for plastic waste is capable of alleviating the world's expanding plastic pollution crisis, and the only solution to this piling up in our communities and oceans is to limit plastic production to essential uses and eliminate the use of toxic chemicals in plastics. The study also showed that plastic waste is not inert. It transports the toxic additives for thousands of miles, impacting global ecosystems. We already know about narratives regarding microplastics, and it even built up in our food chain. And a recent study or report was made in the UK wherein microplastics was also found in the placenta. So this situation is quite alarming because, for example, microplastics found in samples of microplastics in the placenta would compromise the immunity of the unborn child. So this would impact on the immunity of and the health situation of the child. The report concluded that chemical recycling, plastic to fuel, and incineration to manage plastic waste is generating high volumes of highly hazardous waste and toxic emissions. That's why, on the part of eco-waste coalition, we are still pushing for sustainable solutions, and one of them is I recognize the LGU of Ormoc City also has an outstanding legislation on the regulation of single-use plastics. This study was it's just a sample of the study done among selected LGUs along Manila Bay, and it says the reduction of waste generation by 27% if alternatives to single-use plastics are recoverable or total or there is total change in the product. So I would we welcome the initiative of Ormoc City of banning certain types of plastics and having this type of regulation. Also, we are conducting a petition to pass a comprehensive law on the ban of single-use plastics. It already passed Congress at the lower house, and it is now for second reading in the Senate. What we want to achieve is a common standardized law, because what we are having now within different LGU is also a difference in the coverage of the types of single-use plastics being regulated. So having a national law will standardize all these regulation. We celebrate and we push for the approach of zero waste, defined as the conservation of all resources by means of responsible production, consumption, reuse, and recovery of products, packaging, and materials without burning and without discharges to land, water, or air that threaten the environment or human health. We also promote refilling. We understand that the Environmental Management Bureau has this refill revolution program. It started out in some parts in Luzon, and recently there is a piloting in one of the highly urbanized cities here in Cebu. This will provide consumers option to buy products through refilling rather than buy products in sachets and other single-use packaging. We also support the ban on incineration as provided for under Philippine Clean Air Act, and we continue to push that this provision be retained in the midst of ongoing efforts to amend this law before the Philippine Congress. This is my last slide, and I will provide a sample of an LGU, although not in the Visayas, but an awardee in Luzon, in Central Luzon. This is San Fernando City in Pampanga, which has a population of 306,000 in 2015 and 35 barangays. It achieved an 81% diversion rate and is an awardee of the National Solid Waste Management Commission and a DNR EMD in 2018. The important takeaways in their experience is to push the decentralization and teach barangays the basics of waste management, given and give the necessary assistance to manage their solid waste. It is also important to know the kind of waste generated from households. Thus, it is important to conduct waste analysis and characterization study, and there should be an ownership by the community, regardless of who sits in the in City Hall or in the municipality. Na the city experienced the change of leadership, but it still was able to maintain its sustainable program on solid waste management through the participation of the community in among the biggest exemplary approach in San Fernando is the putting up materials recovery facilities in every barangay. Although this would not be possibly done in highly urbanized cities because of the lack of space, but it can be done also through clustering. If materials recovery facilities are seriously implemented, this will allow the barangays to ensure that it is able to fulfill its mandate under Section 10 of RA 9003, and it is able to process the biodegradables and recyclables in their localities, and shall only dispose the residuals that will help the city or the LGU or the municipality or the province reduce its total cost of solid waste management, because a big portion of the waste generated daily, for example, in the case of San Fernando City, a diversion rate of 81% results into more sustainable practice on solid waste management, lesser cost in maintaining its program on solid waste management, and also results into less pressure of and longer lifespan for our final disposal site. This will be all. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Sir Lito, for giving us the facts and the data for solid waste management. Also here in Leyte, I did not know na we deviate from the yung sa composition ng thank you, Sir Lito, for giving us the facts and the data for solid waste management. Also here in Leyte, I did not know na we deviate from the yung sa composition ng solid waste from the country na statistics, na yung sa nationwide sa kanila is more than 50%, 60 ba, na compostable. But in our case, here in Eastern Visayas, it is more the residual, so mga plastics, mga sachet. So I was thinking, ano kaya, so okay siguro ang at least at least in terms of compostable, marami sigurong nagko-compost pit, practicing compost pit, and it looked like parang nagsisegregate yata talaga kami kasi I mean, konti na lang yung compostable na nako-collect, and yung hindi na talaga, yun na talaga yung hindi na I mean, yung hindi talaga namin ma-manage, which are the plastics that we can't manage to what will we do with that, in our individual homes ba. Yun talaga yung yun yung talagang natatapon, which is yun ang problem with the single-use plastics. Yun, I agree with that, and I've also was also in agreement dun sa sinabi ni Sir na yung during sa collection, kasi example na lang sa amin sa bahay, we really segregate And we have a compost pit. Tapos sinesegregate din namin plastic, cardboards, and then yung mga papers, waste papers lang. Yun, sinesegregate namin yan lahat. And then, pero pagdating sa basurero, tinatanggal inaano pa rin nila. They still maganda na yung pagkakaano eh. We always place them in ano kasi ayaw din namin ng bumabaho. Sometimes the garbage collectors do not come sometimes sa designated nila na na schedule. So, talagang inaayos namin yan. Kahit na yung mga cans, ng mga canned goods, we wash them before piling them for disposal later. So, nakaano na yan lahat, naka-segregate na, nakabalot na yan, each individual, mga kinds of, pero pagdating dun sa ganun pa rin, tinatanggal pa rin natin, tapos they still wala yung pinaghirapan naming pag-segregate pagdating sa garbage truck, hindi naman nagkakahalo pa rin sila. So yun, and then pero I have one question. Ito yung medyo kasi for me ito yung medyo na-catch yung attention ko nung sinabi ni Sir Lito na yung Clean Air Act na provisions for the Clean Air Act. There's some people who are actually wanting to modify the provisions of the Clean Air Act. Ako kasi parang sa akin I have a different stand on that kasi ang hirap kasi kung landfills lang, lalo na pag sa medical na, the medical waste, paano mo talaga. Kailangan talaga ng incinerators and then I'm also speaking from when I was in Japan, nagtanong ako sa kanila, ba't may incinerator sila? And dapat modern na sila na society, dapat hindi na sila nag-incinerator because they're polluting the air, etc. Talagang ako sa kanila. And then yung labmate ko, he said, senpai, tawag namin senpai, he said na they have incinerators that are filtered, yung mga carbon dioxide ng mga emissions minimized talaga, hindi talaga na pupunta sa air. So meron silang ganung technology. If we can adapt that technology, then why not? Ayun. Or yun na muna.
Yung segregation, importante din minsan is the question who collects. Pag hindi na-capacitate natin yung barangays to perform its function based on the mandate provided for under RA 9003, then it results into the mother LGU like the city or the municipality taking over, and then that begins the problem because ang daming barangays. For example, here in Cebu City lang, 80. And imagine the waste generated every day by all these 80 barangays. When the law says the manner in which we implement our system should be decentralized. The barangay should be empowered to perform its own the respective solid waste management programs, and they should be able to ensure that one, they ensure segregation in their barangay, and then they also collect the biodegradables and the recyclables. And it is only the responsibility of the city to collect the residuals and the special waste. Special waste pa nga, hindi pwede dapat kunin ng city or municipality because it requires a registered service provider because it's hazardous. Just like our hospital waste, hindi dapat government personnel, whether it's from barangay, the municipality, the city, or the province, that should be handling these types of waste because these are hazardous and the LGUs do not have the capability to manage these types of waste. So, maliit ng porsyento lang dapat daily ang handled by the city, the municipality, or the province. In the case of yung standard na waste composition, siguro after the 80% na total ng recyclables at biodegradables, ang natitira na lang dyan yung recyclables and the residuals and the special waste. Maliit na porsyento. In the case of, for example, this is quite a big number, 600 tons for example, although sa isang city rito, although this is still a conservative estimate, 20% of that is only 120 tons per day. But if you collect all, then it becomes a very huge problem for the city or the municipality to handle because it's a very huge volume that requires so many equipment, so many personnel, a lot of fuel to transport all this waste, and a huge cost for tipping fee because you pay for every ton of waste you dispose in landfills. I agree that we should not be dependent on landfills. We agree. That is why for the landfill, for LGUs to be not so much dependent on the landfills, we should have a good waste diversion program. Meaning all those recyclables, all those compostables are processed at the barangay level. If it cannot be done by a barangay because for lack of space, especially sa very mga highly urbanized cities, but I think it can be done in other parts of the country. Na magkaroon ng materials recovery facility in each barangay. Then if you have an MRF in your barangay, trained din ang mga personnel, the law says the city or the municipality has to extend technical and financial support to the barangay. If the barangay is able to do it, it has its own MRF, then only about 20% or less goes out of these barangays every day, not the 100%, because the 80, more or less the 80% are retained because they are being processed in the respective locality. That's why it's also important na in the barangays, ma'am, we have the institutional mechanism in place, the Barangay Ecological Solid Waste Management Committee. However, many of these committees exist only on paper. They submit reports to the DILG, but they do not operate. They do not function. They are not functional. That's why nagkakaproblema because it's the barangay kapitan or the kagawad who assumes all these responsibilities when if functional sana ang committee, then you have the waste generators, the market vendors, the homeowners associations, the owners of junk shops, the business community, even the environmental NGOs or the religious organizations. These are all grouped into this Barangay Solid Waste Management Committee, and then they plan because they are the youth waste generators, even schools, principals. But unfortunately, hindi installed ang ating mga institutional mechanism like this barangay Ecological Solid Waste Management Committee. So there is no proper planning at the barangay level. So all these huge responsibilities rest on the barangay kapitan and the kagawad. When sana for based on practice, any successful solid waste management program has an active component of community participation, ownership by the community. That's why maganda sana active din ang ating Barangay Ecological Solid Waste Committee para doon pag-usapan. And then they plan on how to manage their waste because hindi pwedeng ang city lang o ang municipality or the province that takes care all of this huge volume. Because if the city or the municipality or the province assumes all this responsibility, then masyadong malaki, masyadong malawak, masyadong malaki ang volume. At ang laki ng perang lumalabas every day. Ito lang sa Cebu City, at least more than 1 million a day for waste disposal. 30 million, more than 30 million a month. And you multiply it by 12 months. So, ganun ka grabe dahil we dispose all. So, yun ang problema. And then, pag barangay na sana yung nagko-collect, the officials can actually have more control and can strictly monitor the collection to ensure na even during collection, segregated pa rin yung waste. Hindi siya na hahalo. There are even schools prior to the pandemic that have already built a good waste management program anchored on segregation, and they have prior to the pandemic they have composting facilities right beside their canteens, so that whatever leftover na nandoon sa canteens nila can easily be processed into compost. And there are schools that are able to earn income from composting prior to the pandemic. So ang lumalabas na lang talaga sa eskwelahan dapat mga residual na lang. And then if you institute, for example, guidelines to regulate the use of single-use plastics in schools or in canteens, that it also lessens the volume of waste plastics generated every day. So ganun po, dapat if you simplify the problem, decentralize it, let our barangays be capable of handling their systems, then it makes easier the management of waste rather than all these problems being assumed by the bigger LGU, the city or the municipality or the province. Meron actually, ma'am, last point na lang, sorry sa mahabang kwento. Meron ding mga non-incineration alternatives on medical waste like autoclave. Hindi siya nagsusunog ng basura. Meron ding even our COVID waste. This is a type of ito kasing virus of COVID-19 doesn't have to be the waste coming out from these facilities doesn't have to be incinerated, because the type of virus ay pwedeng ma-disinfect at a lesser temperature. Problema sa atin sa incineration, although we are the only country I think that has an active the only country I think in the world that has an active anti-incineration policy, yung point ng monitoring at yung capability natin to ensure na the emissions are within standards. And ibang usapin pa na there are also about 50 studies done globally that would prove the still, even if all these pollution control devices that you institute in these incinerators, they still emit harmful dioxins and furans. I have a friend who writes a column in a national daily who is from Denmark, who says even in their country, marami pa ring mga incinerators doon ang lumalampas na sa standards. So why not use ang push namin sana, why not use a more environment friendly, more sustainable approach rather than resorting to incineration? Kasi the problem with incineration is we do not change our habit of pattern of consumerism because pwede nang sunugin eh. So we can actually maintain our level of waste generation now because eventually it will end up getting incinerated. So our pollution sa land is transformed into air pollution. And then the question pa, do we have the capability of monitoring it? I've talked to one barangay who in one city here, Talisay City, who the punong barangay is really serious in implementing waste diversion. They are already conducting segregation at source sa mga purok level, and they have this mga homeowners associations, different community associations that are doing it. But since sa city nila privatize ang collection, as soon as these trucks enter into their barangay, nasisira yung sistema because whatever they segregate ends up mixed when these trucks enter their barangay during collection. So I told the barangay captain, I proposed to her na Kap, baka it's really timely to have your MRF in your barangay, and they have a space. They can find a way to look for funding because there are lots of possible sources of funding. Pag na-build na yung MRF mo, ang pwedeng kolektahin na lang nung private company is your residual na lang. If you allow them to do the way they are doing now, the private company, the personnel of the private company, then mawawalang silbi ang ginagawang segregation because hindi concern kasi, especially if privatized. Pag privatized na, the bigger the bulk, the bigger the volume collected and how the bigger the payment from the LGU. Di ba po? Kasi the contract is between how many tons you transported to final disposal sites. Ganon din kung ang problema minsan sa LGU run collection system, karamihan hindi rin ini-implement yung segregated collection and transport even if the waste is segregated at source. So malaking tulong if the barangay have an MRF, materials recovery facility. So hindi na ang collection will not be done, hindi na mag-household collection ang nagko-collect ngayon na magtatapon. Bali ang kukunin na lang sa barangay is the residual, provided that the barangay have its own collection trucks, also have its own personnel, have a fund. The Supreme Court actually says in a case 2015, it says the barangays can formulate an ordinance for a reasonable fee, charging a reasonable fee for collecting biodegradables and recyclables. the waste every day. So usually ang pattern natin, it's only the city or the municipality that has its own ordinance for garbage fee. Pero Supreme Court already says it in a case versus the city of Quezon City in 2015 that there is also a provision there in the implementing rules and regulations of RANS 003 that the barangay can actually implement an ordinance to charge fees so that it can fulfill its mandate under the law. Otherwise, saan kukuha ng pera ang budget for yung barangay to be able to fulfill its mandate. Ganun po. At the same time, so kung may in place ka na, meron nang ginagawa at the level sa baba na mga segregation practices, composting, recycling, kukunti na lang sana ang lalabas sa barangay for disposal, final disposal. Hindi rin babaho ang landfill mo po kasi you don't dispose your compostables to landfills. Right now, almost all LGUs here dispose all their compostables every day. There is no good composting program except those done by at the barangay levels, mga homeowners. But the volume is not enough to offset the volume hauled to the final disposal site. So, in return, yung final disposal sites naman, whether it's government-owned or private, nagsasuffer health and environment problems ang host communities because mabaho ang lugar dahil nagtapon ka ng malaking bulto ng biodegradables every day. Sana, pag napigilan natin yung practice na yun by having a facility at the barangay, only a small portion is transported to final disposal sites. But it takes time. That's why we should start now. It should be done. The law is more than 2 decades old. Ecological Solid Waste Act of 2000. So, more than 20 years na. Pero nahihirapan until now ang mga local government units natin.
Just sharing po yung solid waste management dito namin dito sa Ormoc. So, contrary naman dun sa may pakita kanina ni Sir Tito. Sorry, kalimutan ko. Sir Tito. Most ng kadalasan ng mga waste na generate ng mga Ormoc Canton is mostly compostables kasi nung ginawa namin yung study is hindi mo na namin tinake into account kung compostables ba ay kinompost na. So bali yung na-generate lang talaga nila. So normally normal naman kasi agricultural area naman yung Ormoc. So around 41% is compostables and yung iba doon, ibang percentage ng pie na yun is recyclables which are 28% and then the rest are residuals with about almost 2% ng mga special and then isa kasi sa mga challenges ng Ormoc for solid waste management is as same with other cities is yung community-based na solid waste management because we believe na mas maganda talaga pag involved yung community doon sa pag-manage ng basura nila. Like for example, we already arrived doon sa segregated waste collection, although hindi naman namin pwedeng sabing 100%, but siguro almost or it has been a norm here sa city namin that segregated collection of malata or residuals and compostables and dili pala siya or residuals is normal na siya para dito sa amin. So we have already achieved that, and then doon naman kami nagkaka-problema doon sa community mismo, kasi kahit ano pang gawin na kahit ano pa kaganda ng program ng mga LGU, as long as yung mga community is hindi sila involved or hindi galing mismo sa kanila, wala pa rin. Kasi yung target namin talaga is to curb the behavior of the people towards sustainability. Yung parang magiging norm na lang na mag-segregate sila, or for compostables, i-compost nila or i-divert nila. And then I'm with Sir Tito regarding dun sa recycling. Nasabi niya kanina na recycling doesn't actually do much for waste reduction, kasi for me or for us here sa solid management team, yung recycling kasi is you're just going to convert the plastic into another form, and at the end of the day, let's say yung plastic bottle, you converted it to make something like a chair. So after mo magamit yung chair na yun, after the chair has provided service, at the end of the day, plastic pa rin siya. So dyan pa rin siya. So hindi siya nakakontribute sa So yung ginagawa namin dito is our IECs are mostly on targeting yung waste avoidance, promoting yung mga sustainable means of sustainable products, sustainable lifestyle, yung mga ganon. And then another thing is dun din sa topic kanina na incineration, meron din kasing nagpo-post sa amin dito, and actually Mayor Richard Gomez is open naman to whatever solution is proposed here sa city, as long as ma-reduce niya yung cost or yung cost ng solid waste management. Actually, may nagpropose dito ng incineration or waste to energy pala yung pinopose. Unfortunately, hindi naman kaya ng city yung yung bulk or yung minimum required tonnage ng basura. So but the idea is open naman kami for mga solutions na ganun. And for now, yung gagaya ng ibang LGUs, yung ginagawa namin is of course utilizing the landfill. Actually, yung landfill namin is LGU owned, but yung mindset is hindi doon talaga sa landfill. Actually, yung principle namin dito is the best landfill is always an empty landfill. So yun yung prinsipyo namin dito. Pero hindi naman talaga natin maiiwasan na mag-generate ng basura yung tao. So andyan pa rin yan. And then what we're aiming for right now, sa year na to, we actually partnered with the Department of Health para maka-avail kami ng technology for proper treatment ng medical waste. So yung partnership is more on sa area is yung LGU yung magpro-provide, and then yung DOH yung magpro-provide ng technology. So waiting na lang po kami dun sa technology nila. As far as we know, if not autoclave, parang microwave technology ata ng pag-treat ng medical waste. So isa yun sa mga ini-aim ng city na magawa before this year ends, kasi din nga due to the rising quantities of medical waste dahil na rin sa pandemic. So isa yun sa priority namin. And then Another priority is yung compostables. Nabanggit kanina ni Sir dito, yung compostables. Tama siya sa pagsabi niya na yung compostables kasi madali lang kasing sabihin mag-compost, madali lang mag-compost talaga. Ibang-ibang technology, but more or less yung process is the same. However, yung problema is how will you address the output ng compostables dun sa product. Yung parang 0 equals 0 na lang talaga siya. Ganun. So, kailangan mo talaga ng mass processing ng mga compostables. So, isa yun sa mga plano ng LGU na gumawa ng mass processing ng compostables. We are going to be partnering with P2P para siguro may access kami sa technology on how to do mass composting, like yung sa nakikita natin sa mga videos online, windrow composting. Kaso lang, kadalasan nun, mga private companies yun eh. Pero yun, isa yun sa mga ini-aim namin. Mass processing ng compostables para 0-0 talaga. Kasi yun nga, kagaya ng sinabi ko kanina, kadalasan ng waste generation ng Ormoc is mostly on compostables. And then, we already have put in place mga junk shops. May mga partners na rin kami, like with the Chuchi Foundation for the collection of recyclable materials, your plastic. Actually, yung Chuchi, yung ginagawa nila, pupunta talaga sila sa barangay, kinokolekta nila yung mga plastic, and then after nila makolekta, sinesend nila sa Taiwan, ginagawang mga jack, mga banig, mga blankets para gamitin for in case ng mga sakuna na pinapamigay naman din nila. So, isa yun sa mga programs na put in place na dito sa city. So, yun na lang yung paano na lang siguro yung isang challenge namin is paano na lang namin minimize yung ito-take advantage yung waste namin para siguro hindi naman maka-generate ng revenue but paano ma-take advantage yung waste na nag-generate namin para mag parang maging sustainable yung solid waste management namin. Kung baga babayaran na lang niya yung sarili niya. Kasi isa yun sa problema ng mga LGU eh. Dito nga lang sa Ormoc, we have calculated at siguro annually na gumagasto kami ng at least 50 million pesos for waste management alone. Yun yun. Yung pera na sana na yun para na siguro sa ibang programs, but we have no choice but to ilaan yun sa waste management. So yun din isa sa mga programs na ina-achieve namin is paano ba babayaran ng waste management yung sarili niya para maging sustainable siya. So ganun. So yun lang siguro from sa side ng Ormoc City. Thank you po.
We're actually also in our family are also talking about that nga. Ano ba itong mga, because even if yung mga, kasi I was telling them na siguro dapat isama siya sa yung mga 4Ps na sinasama ba yan? I'll be asking our resource persons and Sir Jay kung sinasama ba yan sa mga seminars sa 4Ps, yung mga solid waste management. But then again, I was thinking nga, kahit na hindi yung mga these people na who are in 4Ps, kahit na we even see our neighbors lang, kahit lang yung neighbors namin, they drive somewhere, tapos ibababa nila, if for example, if the garbage trucks do not come on time, tapos nag-accumulate na yung basura nila. So they drive somewhere, tapos yung mga bagong roads dyan, na and then yun, doon nila tinatapon yung basura nila sa gilid na kasako, ganyan. Mga yan mga may mga sasakyan na or they ask some pedicab drivers to throw the garbage somewhere. Yun, and yun, we're thinking, paano ba, ano yan, kasi hindi siya parang all class, hindi siya na yung consciousness na yung class D, class A, parang lahat yata ng classes ng society merong parang blind sa environmental issue na to. So I was thinking dapat siguro maglang parang advertisement ba, parang paulit-ulit sa radyo, sa TV, paulit-ulit na ina-advertise, something like that. I don't know. Yun.
Share ko lang po yung experience namin regarding sa topic na yan. Yun nga, isa yan sa mga problema, di ba? Yung paulit-ulit ka na lang nag-i-inform na ganito, dapat ganyan. Pero yung ginawa kasi namin dito is, aside sa IEC na side, more on pumupunta talaga kami sa barangay, nagjo-join sa minsan sa mga council meetings, sa mga barangay assemblies, pupunta kami mismo doon, and then discussing topics about solid waste management. And then before the pandemic, pati schools pinupuntahan namin, on invite lang naman kasi medyo kapos kasi kami sa manpower. But now, of course I understand na hindi po siya sapat. Hindi talaga sapat na mag-IEC kasi kahit saan ka man pumunta, meron talagang mga kumbaga hard-headed, kumbaga nakitigas yung mga ulo. So isa sa mga ginawa namin is we handed over the authority to apprehend dun sa community na mismo. Kasi sila mismo yung andun, sila mismo yung nakakita. Kasi minsan, pag nasa LGU lang yung authority to apprehend is, for example, may magsasubmit ng report sa office namin na ganito, ganyan. Pagdating dun sa site, wala na. So, wala nang evidence. So, yung ginawa namin is we nag-conduct kami ng solid waste management deputation every year. Nagkakandak kami it started I think last year. So far meron na kaming mga na-deputize na for this year mga 200 personnel na ata. So those solid waste management enforcers, so mix yun, may mga barangay officials, may mga police, uniform personnel, may mga volunteers talaga. Basta lang basta above 18 years old or 21 years old, so pwede ka mag-volunteer. Of course kami, meron din sa amin. And then what happened was the first year that we implemented that is medyo hindi masyadong malaki yung coverage niya. So meron lang iilan, but the one that mostly did the enforcement was yung office talaga namin. So what we did on the following year, which is this year, so after namin mag-deputize, gumawa kami ng chat group, lahat ng mga enforcers andon, and then sinali na rin yung mga barangay officials. So lahat ng mga violations ng for example ng isang barangay, sinesend lahat, o kaninong barangay to or kaninong bahay to. Tapos kino-call out na lang yung attention ng enforcer na naka-station sa lugar na yon. So what we observed was lalong naging lumapad yung reach ng enforcement kasi mismong yung mga volunteers or mismong yung mga solid waste management enforcers, sila na mismo yung pumupunta dun sa lugar kasi kino-call out na yung attention nila, and then sila na yung mismo nag-i-issue ng citation ticket kasi authorized naman sila, meron silang ID, and then siyempre napipilitan din sila kasi kino-call out nga sila dun sa chat group. Tapos hinihingan din namin sila ng report every quarterly kung ilan na ba yung na ano nila, ilan na tikitan. And then sa mga enforcers na nagsasubmit ng mga blanco, kino-call out din namin yung attention kung meron bang challenge na i-encounter or may mga problema ba doon sa lugar nila. So ganun. More on yung idea is binigay namin yung authority doon sa community mismo. So yun yung share lang. Yun lang yung experience namin dito sa Ormoc. So far, so good naman.
Meron din kasing there's a prevailing view din na out of sight, out of mind. Ang basura, pag hindi mo na nakita, is no longer your problem. Or sometimes they call it as a NIMBY, not in my backyard. So, as long as wala ito sa bakuran ko, they end up someplace else, it's no longer my problem. Dati nga, ang isang proposal ng mga environmental lawyers, is to for the violators, if they resort to community service because they are not capable of paying the fines for their violations, then they do it in the landfill, so they can see for themselves yung situation doon, yung final disposal na kasi, so they would know, oh, this is the real situation. Yung pag-address nito is a combination of different approaches. A combination of a good IEC program, something na makarelate yung mga tao and then they can easily understand. Also, it's a good a component of a good enforcement, because tama si Sir Jay na there are situations na hindi ma-address ng seminar lang o training. No matter how many times you conduct seminars, there are still people who will not follow. Isang factor din is a good system na pwedeng sundan ng mga tao. I've talked to some commonly known as mga squatter, referred to as informal settlers. Meron din naman silang mga associations, and they would say, we are willing to follow as long as there is a system. Wala naman kami magagawa if that is the system being implemented by the LGU. We should follow. So, yung mga ganun, kasi minsan din nagre-resort yung mga tao ng ganun, nagtatapon kung saan because of hindi tumutugma doon sa collection schedule. Hindi na-follow ang collection schedule. So the waste ends up somewhere else. Dinadala o nagsusuhol sila ng mga ibang tao para magdala. Maganda yung point ni Sir Jay regarding sa direction ng LGU Ormoc City, because it focuses on waste avoidance, meaning if there are regulations that would result into avoiding certain types of wastes, like mga even pwede nga sa gobyerno rin natin umpisahan to set the example, even sa ating procurement, lalo na ngayon during this pandemic, yung mga food packs lang na binibigay natin, these are all in styrofoam and in plastics. And probably there is a way of telling the bidders na these are the terms and conditions, and you should explore alternative packaging, or mga bottled waters, for example, the LGU can actually do away with it. Meron ng guidelines or order si Secretary Simato about it to the National Solid Waste Management Commission. Meron na ring mga certain types of plastic, although very very small lang. Ngayon, ang sinasabi nilang non-environmentally acceptable products. Dapat kasi 3 years after the approval of the law, the Commission already provided a list of what is called in the law as non-environmentally acceptable products, NEAP. However, this year lang naglabas ng list of non-environmentally acceptable products ang Commission. Kung nag-release ito earlier at mas comprehensive ang coverage, then probably producers of products would be forced to research for alternative packaging rather than if we go into groceries and departments, yung mga grocery ngayon, yung mga fast-moving consumable products are all in plastics. And once you consume the product, the packaging is thrown away. Mahirap nang i-recycle eh. So, kaya karamihan din ang nabibili ngayon is sachet. That's why sana mag-improve, malawak itong ng ENB na ng refill revolution, wherein they partner with local government units na mag-put up ng refilling stations. So instead of buying mga oil or your liquid soap or even your detergents in sachets or yung mga condiments in sachets, you can already buy it from mga refilling stations. But it has to be done at the level sa sari-sari store. Kasi when I buy and when I don't go out, because I also take care na hindi ako ma-expose ngayon sa a lot of people because of this pandemic, then I go to my nearest sari-sari store. And then ang mabibili mo doon, every time na bibili ka, plastic na nga yung bibilihin mo, ilalagay pa sa plastic. So, ang daming ganun. So, it's a combination of policy na regulation, katulad ng ginagawa ng Ormoc City ngayon. Maganda sana makita natin kung how it translate yung halimbawa, yung if this is the level of the volume of plastic waste generated previously through the enforcement of this policy, yung regulation of certain types of single-use plastic, paano ito translate into bumaba yung volume ng plastic waste? Magandang tingnan. Or combined with other equally important programs like continuing education, partnering also with KBP siguro sa radio. Lagi ba alaala sa mga tao, a lot of us are still listen to radios, whether FM or AM station. Maglagay lang ng a few seconds na spot. KBP can provide that for free sa mga LGUs para lang ma-remind ng mga tao. Then a strict enforcement also, political will, because I experienced it during my time in more than 8 years in City Hall na pag may na-apprehend na violator, takbo agad si barangay kagawad at si kapitan para makiusap na pagbigyan na lang yung violator. So, yung violator that does not learn from the experience na dapat he should be responsible for his or her act. Every time na may ganon, may tumatakbong para i-forgive na lang yung offense. So, nadi-diminish yung effectivity ng ating regulations pag hindi rin nagpapakita ng political will ng ating mga officials. So, it's a combination of all these equally important programs, sir, that can reach probably next time we have to learn also future siguro nating mga discussions, yung actual LGUs that already reach very high level of waste diversion. For example, yung sinight ko ngayon ng San Fernando City in Pampanga. Paano nila ginawa? They are already a city and still and yet they are able to do it. Maganda na sa lahat ng yan, sana ginagawa ito sa baba at the barangay level. They have their waste management program. They have set of targets for waste reduction over a period of time. For example, if naka-divert tayo ng 30% ngayon sa waste, dati 100%, ngayon 70% na lang, probably next year maging 50% na lang, or 60 maging 50, ha? Meaning over a period of time nagdi-diminish yung volume natin that are being dumped into the landfill. It requires effort, it requires planning, it requires proper execution, it requires political will, it also requires the right people to do it. Maganda yung ginawa ng LGU or MOC to deputize people, to involve barangays. Pwede nga gawin, may incentive din yung mga enforcers sa barangay level. For example, if we have a 100 peso na fine for a certain violation, baka part of that would go to the barangay or the actual nag-apprehend. Mga ganun, i-ensure lang na hindi ma-abuse ng mga deputized personnel. But it really requires an effort sa decentralized, nasa baba, may malinaw na program, mahusay na implementation para hindi mo problema sa taas, hindi saluhin ng syudad o ng municipality o ng province yung buong problema ng basura. If it reaches that point, then the solution will always be buying trucks so that we can haul all this waste into the final disposal sites. So in return, we could perpetuate the problem of so much waste generated without trying to reduce the level of waste we produce. Tapos tapo na lang talaga. Halimbawa sa plastic, sir, para daw tayong yung nag-overflow ng balde. What should you do? Would you first turn off the tap, or would you get a mop para magtrapo ka ng tubig na excess water? I think we really reached that point wherein we really need to turn off the tap. As I said earlier, yung mga basic, yung mga essential na lang, limit the plastic production to essential uses. Marami kasi ngayon single use once you use it, tapo na, mahirap nang recycle, and then it disintegrates into microplastics, pupunta sa dagat, pupunta sa ating food chain, lahat ng yun. And sabi nga nung Oceana, time will come, o baka ngayon na, there will be more plastic waste in our oceans compared to the actual number of fish na nasa dagat ngayon because of the waste generation, level of waste generation natin. So we need to see saan ba dito ang pwedeng i-regulate. Halimbawa, yung straw. I have a friend who is in a municipality na nag-ban ng she is a municipal councilor na-compute niya talaga kung ilang million in a year ang pwedeng ma-generate ng plastic straw na pwedeng ma-save yun o ma-prevent kung meron kang regulation nun. Pwede naman kasing uminom ng beverage or na walang straw One time. So ngayon, ang pinalabas ng straw lang actually at plastic steers. Ang National Solid Waste Management Commission, it's to very limited list of non-environmentally acceptable products. Those products should be banned na dapat plastic steers, coffee mo, when you eat and dine out, plastic straws, pwede na yung mga pero the list should be expanded para naman mag-diminish na rin yung level of plastic pollution na nasa environment natin. Even waste pickers, we have associations here of mga tawag nila mga scavengers, waste pickers. Nung nagsara ang government-owned landfill dito, they resorted into small-scale recycling. They entered into contract with mga maliliit na malls. Kasi mga lalaki, may mga big recycling companies na rin yan maliliit. Tapos sila yung kumukuha ng basura everyday dun sa mga stores o malls, maliliit na malls. Napapansin nila, the plastic waste are increasing. The volume of waste they hauled from these establishments are increasing, and yet diminishing yung recyclable materials na pwede nilang livelihood. Kasi konti na lang ang pwedeng ibenta Dahil yung mga single-use plastic, halos hindi mo na rin pwedeng ibenta yun. So, masama na nga sa environment, hindi pa pwedeng mapagkitaan. So, talagang kailangan na nating i-ban yung mga maraming types of single-use plastics.
Rejoinder lang na that's why daw yung mga garbage collectors ng mga garbage trucks namin are mixing all the plastics together. Actually, they're looking for yung pwede pa nilang mabenta din yung mga kung ano-anong. So, yun, kaya kinakalat pa rin nila. So, I don't know, paano ba yan?
Yan din ang behavior dito, ma'am. Even mga city garbage loaders, they don't want it segregated, and then sila na mismo yung nagbebenta prior to going into the landfill. Dumadaan sila sa mga junk shops to have the although yung quality ng segregation mo nagsasuffer niya kasi mabilisan na yan. Tapos yung rather than being processed at the level sa barangay.
Mm-hmm.
Wala ba tayo, sir, na parang segregation facility? Yung mga nakikita ko sa meron silang parang like parang factory type na segregation facility. Meron na ba tayo niyan sa Pilipinas? Or hindi yan uso dito? Mano-mano talaga.
May mga facilities naman na may mga conveyors na saan dumadaan yung mga waste, at they still need some personnel to sort out to improve the segregation process. Ang problema, usually it's done at the level sa end-up pipe na sa dulo na ng programa ng solid waste. So, na-overwhelm din sila sa volume.
Mm-hmm.
Meaning, if all this waste go into this certain type of facility, at doon na sila nagsisegregate, then imagine the volume being processed every day. Meron naman dito isang private landfill din. Meron din siyang sort of an MRF, pero na-overwhelm siya sa volume because it accepts waste from 3 cities and 3 municipalities. Imagine the volume na ma-receive niya araw-araw. Kasama pa ang biodegradable waste niyan. So, mas simpler sana, isang decentralized process sa baba, sa level ng ating mga communities na they can actually earn out of it. Maganda rin sana, maalala ko yung sabi ni Sir Jay tungkol sa compost. pwede na nating itap as we improve our quality of compost na na-generate, we can have it link up with our agriculture program. Kasi pwedeng yung mga dependent on chemical inputs, pwedeng hinay-hinay mag-transition into using the compost generated from this our facilities, composting facilities. So, hindi mo problema ng market. Sana kung mayroong integration na gano'n. So, it has to be done planning. Magpa-planning ang barangay, magpa-planning din ang level ng city, magkaroon ng synergy doon sa plan. Ay hindi magkaiba yung direction. So, that regardless of who sits in power, sino yung kapitan, sino ang mayor, magkalaban o hindi. Minsan may mga factor na gano'n eh. Hindi magkasundo sa politika na nadadama yung mga magagandang programa imbes na masustain natin. First sa amin, we work with barangays. We call this our zero waste project, zero waste barangay projects. We train them. We conduct surveys because we have to know the behavior ng mga households, yung actual practices nila ngayon, ano yung how they manage their waste household level. Then we help the barangay conduct its waste analysis and characterization study because mahirap i-manage something which you do not know. For example, a barangay knows na ang basura niya ay volume ay 10 tons every day. Pero hindi niya alam kung ang waste composition niyan. Ilan ba ang compostable niyan? Ilan ang recyclable? So that you will be able to draft a good program, a good plan on how to deal with this waste composition. So, halimbawa, tama yung sabi ni Sir Jay kanina, kung malaki ang compostable mo, should put in place a good composting program. Na ganun. Tapos we teach them, we partner with them, tapos we put up we even help them craft their ordinances sa barangay. We also help them mag-dry run ng systems na fit doon sa barangay, including the establishment of their materials recovery facility. Maganda yung ganun na partnership tayo kung open, kasi karamihan naman marami rin sa ating mga barangay officials do not know how to. This is the mandate of the law pero they do not know how to proceed. Paano ito maabot tong yung end goal. So we partner with them kasi malaking bagay pag sa barangay eh. And then if makita yung ma-showcase sa barangay, then probably other barangays will emulate kung ano yung ginagawa ng barangay na ito kasi maganda ang resulta. Maliit na lang ang natatapon na basura. Pero meron ding mga times katulad ng individual na mga violators na you really have to enforce the law. If after several efforts na partnership or ayaw talaga nung local officials, there is also a provision in the law which is called the citizen's suit. You can, because it's provided for by the law na you should have this established in your barangay. The Barangay Ecological Solid Waste Management Committee, chairperson ang punong barangay, assist niya ang kagawad na nasa environment o kaya sa health. Tapos pangatlong elected official ay ang SK chairperson. The rest niyan, siguro more than 10 members niyan, tatlo lang ang elected officials. You assemble all these sectors na waste generator in your barangay. Yung vendors association, yung sabi ko kanina, yung junk shops, yung schools, yung mga business establishments, yung isang representative nila. even the religious community. Kasi nag-generate ng mga basura. And then you familiarize with ano bang klase ng waste na nag-generate sa barangay ko through the wax. And then, you make a plan out of it. Kung hindi gagawin, yun nga, may provision of pwedeng filing of case to compel certain officials to perform these obligations. Kasi kung hindi gagawin, magtutuloy yung problema na lalala ang problema ng pollution dahil hindi na-install yung mga tinatawag sa batas na institutional mechanism that should have take care of resolving all these problems sa waste.
Siguro for solid waste management, ang solid waste management kasi is mahirap talaga siya, lalo na if you are going to to place something na malaki yung pagbabago sa community nyo. Mahirap talaga siya, as in mahirap. But through perseverance, through teamwork, konti-konti lang, you will be able to achieve it if you really have the vision, if you have the support, and if you have the willingness para gawin talaga yung nararapat dun sa community nyo. So, wag po kayong, siguro wag tayong ma-taken aback sa mga problems. Minsan kasi, nagdi-discuss pa lang yung, let's say, nagdi-discuss pa lang yung team, marami na agad negative na lumalabas, maraming, ay, baka maging ganyan, baka maging ganito. We don't even know if that problem will surface pag implement na. So, kumbaga, kapit lang, kumbaga, kaya natin yan. So, yan lang po.
Okay, so for me, dapat talaga seryosohin natin lahat yung solid waste management. Siguro i-internalize natin. We have to walk the talk. Kasi kahit na yung mga, educated people like us, we also still, parang hindi pa talaga nag-sink in the gravity of the problem. So, whatever little we can do, segregate our wastes. Kahit yung segregation lang, mere segregation, it's really a big deal na, kahit na hindi nila segregate after. But, composting. So, kahit na pag-segregate as mag-compost ka, it will really minimize na yung problem, no? And then, what else? You do, kami, we we bring our own plastic bags and our own eco bags, no? When we shop, we already do that. Kahit na medyo mahirap siya actually hanggang ngayon parang mahirap pa rin siya. Kasi minsan nakakalimutan namin magdala. But those things and yung mga katangkiliki natin, yung mga those na like yun nga kahit especially now, no, yung mga delivery services. So we usually go with delivery services na hindi plastic yung kanilang containers. So, and then pinagagalitan namin minsan yung pag na sila yung mga styrofoam pang ginagamit. And kahit na medyo mahal kasi yung mga iba there are like shampoos na bar shampoos na, no, yung mga those things, no, mga kahit na yung ear tawag diyan, yung sa what's this, yung cotton buds na di ba there are mahirap you have to search for cotton buds that are not plastic, yung kaniyang what do you call this, yung the holder niya, yung stem niya. Yeah, so we have to search for cotton buds na wooden or bamboo yung ginagamit. So those things na that you buy, kahit yun lang na just choose those na recyclable toothbrush that are not made of plastics. Right? Yun na muna. Just starting with ourselves first.
Like to follow up doon sa point din ni Ma'am Lenny about starting within your home. Practicing it. Kasi even if maliit na bagay, malaki na rin yun, lalo na pag you are able to influence others also to do it. That's taking care of lowering your carbon footprint. No? Dati, pwede mo rin i-assess yan. Dati, ganito ang level ng consumption ko ng pamilya. Bumaba ba ito? In what way? Even hindi lang sa waste siguro, including sa use of energy and all other aspects. Pangalawa, kailangan din naman natin, because we live in a community. That's why maganda rin yung point ni Sir Stephen about what should be the policies to pursue to ensure na we are able to attain a sustainable system, lalo na climate change driver itong solid waste eh. If you so-called quote unquote mismanage or create more pollution, it tends to drive na mag-produce ka ng more greenhouse gases through the methane doon sa mga unprocessed mo na biodegradables, through the pag nag-open boarding ka, meron pa rin nagsusunog until now ngayon. Hindi lang basura na tinatapon sa ibang lugar. May nagsusunog din because minsan hindi nasusunod yung collection schedule. So it produces toxic emissions. So, yun po. Meron na actually magandang batas. Ang problema, it's not properly, decisively implemented. Yung political will, medyo atrasado ang seriousness natin eh. We are still discussing this more than 2 decades na. Kung tao ito, it's already legal age, pwede na mag-vote. The person can already decide for himself or herself. Pero hanggang ngayon, we still are discussing and coming up with right solutions. Meron na kung sinunod lang down to the letter yung batas. Ang problema, hindi nasusunod, hindi strictly na i-enforce ito sa level ng communities natin. At karamihan din centralized ang system. Nakadepend lahat doon sa city or sa province, sa municipality. Yung dapat ay ginagawa sa barangays. So, nag-iintayan. So, instead of para bang reducing the problem into the simplest term, so it becomes more manageable if you manage at the level sa mga sitio o purok, because mas lesser ang mas manageable, mas maliit ang saklaw, mas konti. Dapat ganun, decentralized na sistema. Hindi rin na-implement natin. So it would take other than the policy on regulation sa single-use plastics, other than kasi waste avoidance, rather than managing it na-produce mo na basura. Mas way higher kung hindi ka na nag-produce, na-reduce mo na ang volume mo ng basura because hindi na-create ang basura because of the practice being done at home or at the local government unit. So, maganda yung share ng Ormoc about waste avoidance. And yun, political will sa implementation. Manage at the level sa mga sityo o purok because mas lesser ang mas manageable, mas maliit ang saklaw, mas konti. Dapat ganun, decentralized na sistema. Hindi rin na-implement natin. So, it would take other than the policy on regulation sa single-use plastics, other than kasi waste avoidance, rather than managing it na-produce mo na basura. Mas way higher kung hindi ka na nag-produce, na-reduce mo na ang volume mo ng basura because hindi na-create ang basura because of the practice being done at home or at the local government unit. So, maganda yung share ng Ormoc about waste avoidance. And yun, political will sa implementation.
There you have it, ladies and gentlemen, our 6th episode entitled Huruhisgutay number 6, Solid Waste Management in Eastern Visayas. We trust that given this discussion forum, you have gained important insights as well as acquired a renewed understanding about this afternoon's episode. Based on the said discussion forum, please allow us to present to you Mr. John de la Cruz, University Research Associate of the Leyte-Samar Heritage Center, who shall recapitulate the highlights of this online discussion forum.
Huruhisgutay 6 centers on the challenges and opportunities about the solid waste management and plastic pollution in Eastern Visayas and beyond. Based on the 2015 National Solid Waste Management Commission Status Report, household waste constitute a massive portion of the municipal solid waste in the Philippines. Next to household wastes are the wastes coming from business establishments and markets, collectively known as commercial wastes, and followed by the wastes coming from government offices, educational and medical institutions, or the institutional wastes, and finally, the least comes from industrial or the manufacturing sector. Moreover, we have also learned from the Waste and Brand Audit Report in 2019 that the waste characterization of household waste in the Philippines consisted largely of compostables, followed by recyclables, residuals, special residuals, and hazardous wastes. Residual wastes, more specifically, are composed largely of single-use plastics such as sachets, plastic label bags, plastic shopping bags, and other types which include single-use plastic packaging, diapers, feminine pads, and polyester products. Contrary to the nationwide statistics, around 56% of the waste generated in Eastern Visayas are composed of residuals, and most of which are single-use plastics. In Region 8, only 43% of LGUs are implementing segregation at source, or SAS, which is one of the least implemented components of solid waste management. However, according to the National Economic and Development Authority of Eastern Visayas, the implementation of such strategy is dependent on the awareness, behavior, and willingness of the locals. In order to help promote proper solid waste management and lessen the production of plastic waste residual wastes in Eastern Visayas, the following recommendations are put forward based on the discussion forum. First is the strict implementation of existing environmental laws, particularly the Ecological Solid Waste Management Act of 2000 or Republic Act 9003, as well as the Philippine Clean Air Act, among others. Second is to support the passage of a comprehensive law banning single-use plastics in the country and the regulation of non-environmentally acceptable products, as well as limiting the production of plastic products to essential uses. Meanwhile, passing of a similar law or policy at the local government unit level can also be explored. Third is to enhance both public and private participation in promoting and implementing zero waste, or an approach where the conservation of all resources is done by way of responsible production, consumption, reuse, and recovery of products, packaging, and materials without burning and without discharges to land, water, and air that may threaten the environment or human health. Since solid waste management are devolved at the community or barangay level under Republic Act 9003, it is important to build the solid waste management capacity of the barangay LGUs and provide them with the necessary assistance to manage solid waste properly and to implement existing laws regarding solid waste management and plastic pollution reduction. Fifth is to explore participatory and community-based approaches to amplify efforts on the promotion and implementation of proper solid waste management and the reduction of use of single-use plastics, especially in the community, government offices, and business establishments, to name a few. Sixth is to conduct regular monitoring, especially on the type of composition of waste generated by the households, government offices, and business establishments, among others. Knowing the type and composition of waste will help authorities outline informed plans and implement appropriate solid waste management strategies and promote the adoption of sustainable products and lifestyle. We also need to conduct more research about the consumer pattern of the households and other public and private establishments and sectors in order to provide meaningful insights or recommendations for producing alternative biodiversity-friendly products, for example, biodegradable packaging, and to avert the use of single-use plastics among the consumers. And concerned organizations may also employ participatory activities like clean-up drives and massive or regular information campaigns to inculcate proper solid waste management and reduction of plastic pollution among the locals, especially the youth sector. And just like what LGU or MOC did, on top of the ecological solid waste management committees at every barangay, LGUs may also explore the deputation of local solid waste management enforcers, which their main task is to ensure the implementation of solid waste management programs and policies, as well as existing laws regarding solid waste management and plastic pollution at the community or in the barangay level.
Friends, we hope that this episode has deepened and broadened our awareness and understanding of solid waste management in Eastern Visayas. We would like to remind everyone that Hisgut Kalibungan may be viewed on the Facebook page of the Leyte-Samar Heritage Center, as well as the official Facebook page of UPV Tacloban College. Thank you very much for being part of this meaningful online discussion forum. We look forward to having all of you again in future Hisgut Kalibungan online events of the Leyte-Samar Heritage Center of UPV Tacloban College. Maupay nga kulop, haaton nga tanan.